Hey guys, welcome to another Tuesday Tech Tips. I'm your host, Ben Hobb with Eagle Vision Video Productions, and today we're going to talk about panel lights. Little lights that you can put in remote areas or unique areas that big lights just can't fit. So let's talk a little bit about some of the lights we use here at Eagle Vision. From the very small, like these very inexpensive newer lights, Aputure lights, up to a larger 1x1 flex light from Westcott. Yeah, it is Westcott. Let's start off with the newer. This one's a CN160. They are the cheapest little panel lights that you can get off of Amazon. Very, very, very inexpensive. The light quality on them is so-so, but in a pinch, they do pretty good. And the nice thing about these is they run off little Sony batteries, just like a bunch of our lights. The Aputure runs off the Sony batteries as well. So very inexpensive to run. The battery systems on them are great, and they're pretty bright. And they've got dimmer switches built right onto the side of them. Whereas the Aputure panel light is quite a bit bigger, and you can see power-wise has quite a bit more power than the newer light. Obviously, size factor, wattage factor, but they do run on these double Sony batteries. They do take a little bit more power, gives you a nice battery indicator on the back, and as well, same thing, they have dimmer settings. Great thing about this one is it has wireless control. The terrible thing about this thing is it has wireless control. That rarely works. Sometimes they work great and flawless for days and days and days, and then all of a sudden you'll have nothing but issues, especially if you have multiple lights and trying to control them from one remote. That's just a finicky setup. The other disadvantage to these lights is their power connector is one of those 4-pin that you used to see on all the old hard drive enclosures, those 4-pin connectors, and these are rickety, and they stick way out, and they're a sore thumb just waiting to be broken. So that's a disadvantage to these ones. If you want to change your color temperature, they are daylight by native, and then you can adjust it to be basically toss your full CTO in there and have a tungsten color temperature. The other one I'm going to talk about is the Westcott 1x1 flexible light. So they come with like a soft, kind of a bit of a kitschy soft box for them, some tough spun on the front, but they're basically a 1x1 panel. Now, if I bring this all the way up, this is an extremely bright flat panel light, like unreasonably bright. 1%. That's the other thing too. This goes right down to 1%, so you can get decently low. I mean, it's still relatively bright, but you can get decently. But the cool thing about this, you can wrap this around posts. You can wrap it, conform it to ceilings. It relatively holds its shape, especially if you take off the softbox. You can have this, the nice shape for anything in particular. Hide it into corners of buildings. You can pretty much bend it right in a 90. And then also with the cable being so long, you can put this in a lot of places and have your control somewhere else. So if you have it next to a practical light as your source, you can have your trigger for this to either come on, brighten up, with the scene if you have someone else controlling the light and hot potting it around. The other really great thing that I like about these Westcott lights is they have screw-in connectors. These connectors are nice and robust. You can get different length cables here. You can daisy chain them along and have your control way out in the middle of nowhere. You're like, oh, that's great in a vehicle and blah, blah, blah. But it's not battery power. I've got a solution for that. I don't know if any of you have seen this before. It's Tether Tools. It takes a V-mount battery or a gold mount battery, their D-tap, and changes it into 120 volts. That's fantastic. It does kill the batteries fairly quickly, but with this being only a 55-watt panel, we've gotten 2 to 3 hours off a single just a 95 watt newer battery off the D-tap. I'm running all the way up to 100% brightness off a D-tap power. Obviously at 100% brightness, it's gonna not last 3 hours for you because at 55 watts, this will deplete quite quickly. However, if you're sitting in that 40–50% range, which is still quite bright for these little flexi panels, you get a decent amount of time out of a V-mount battery. Thanks again for joining us for our Tuesday Tech Tip. I'm Benjamin Hov with Eagle Vision Video Productions, and we'll see you next time.